Great. All right. Thanks, Lilia. Good evening, everyone. I'm Janine Solomon. I'm the managing attorney and a senior project director at Mass Advocates for Children. I'm filling in for Julia Landau tonight. I'm joined by Joanne Pino and Christina Perez, who are helping to facilitate tonight's chat. We are thrilled to welcome back Dr. Patricia McDaid. She's an experienced educator who's focused on the needs of students with autism and students with intellectual disabilities. Dr. McDaid will be talking with us this evening about how to increase engagement in remote instruction for students with disabilities during COVID-19. We recognize that some students are still struggling with accessing remote learning and services, and Dr. McDaid will help to provide some strategies and tips for IEP teams and parents. I'm going to hand it over briefly to Joanne Pino, who will introduce some of the chat logistics. Joanne.
Hi, thanks so much for joining us. And welcome back to our MAC regulars. We really appreciate you being here. I'll be facilitating your questions for our panel tonight, and we'll wait until after the presentation to answer your questions. But please submit your questions as we go along anytime during the, and using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Those of you joining us on Facebook, please submit your questions as a comment under the live stream. If you see someone else's question that you'd like to answer, please give it a like. Also, keep an eye on the chat box on the Zoom and the comments on Facebook for resources we'll be sharing throughout the presentation. Thanks so much, and let me know if you have any questions in the Q&A.
Thank you very much. We have one of our polls up already. And thanks, Joanne. Again, tonight's presentation will run about 45 minutes or so, but we wanted to let you know that Dr. McDaid has agreed to stay through 9 p.m. this evening to take your questions. So I think we're going to get started. I think she'll be waiting and taking questions at the end of her presentation, but I will turn it over now to Dr. McDaid.
Hi, everybody. I'm really glad to be back in this presenting to all you folks in Massachusetts. I'm talking to you from Northern Maine, which is where I live now, but I spent most of my teaching career and got all of my education actually in Massachusetts. So Massachusetts is very near and dear to my heart. I've been a special educator for almost 30 years. The last 10 or so, I've worked as a consultant to school districts around the country around inclusive education and including kids with significant disabilities, including autism and intellectual disabilities, to really support capacity building at the school and district level to make inclusive education more of the norm rather than sort of a special thing that only some kids and some families have access to. So, boy, this has been hard, this COVID school closure business. I am going to just share my screen here. I have a couple of slides, and they're basically more to keep me on track and to make sure that I don't forget to tell you anything that, you know, I thought of in the shower this morning that was really, really important. So I'm going to talk about engagement in distance teaching and learning. And the reason I'm focusing on engagement is I've talked to many, many parents and many, many teachers since last February, March, when schools started to close. And the challenges that many families have had and teachers have had as well with figuring out how to make distance teaching and learning work for kids with significant disabilities. The challenges have just been huge. And for some folks, that the problem solving and the trial and error and all of that kind of work is still happening, because there are some kids and some situations that we just don't have quite figured out yet. So I talked to my colleagues around the country, and I think that there are two things about this that are pretty challenging. One is this has never been done before. It's never happened before, ever in the history of special education. And two, there's a reason for that, in that many of our kids with significant disabilities really need someone there in the room with them, helping them manage their attention, to be able to modify materials, to be able to take advantage of those teachable moments. And so it's just been a really hard time. I think one of the other biggest concerns that we all have is that some of the kids, maybe a lot of the kids, are losing ground. They're regressing, they're losing the skills that they had before school closed. And, you know, that really, I think, is unpreventable, unfortunately. But I think that we can, you know, if we can really focus on, you know, what can we do? What can we do well during this time? And I think that has a lot to do with letting go of some of the things we wish we could do, but we can't quite do. And as I've been talking to teachers especially, I've been really working with them to be able to let go of their plan and to talk to you, to talk to the parent who's on the other end of the Zoom with their child, and really work together to find a plan that's going to work. So just a couple of things to remember, I think, during this time. We hope it might be ending sometime soon, but we have no idea. It started off as 2 weeks, then 4 weeks, then the rest of the school year, now till January. It's just very unpredictable and very, very difficult. But I guess the thing I want to say to everybody is, you do the best you can, and that's all you can do. And that's okay. You know, your child's Zoom session with the special educator may not be the most important thing for you on any given day, depending on what else is going on in your home. And that's okay. Take care of yourself so that you can take care of your family. I've talked to a lot of my friends who are parents, and several who are parents of kids with disabilities. And it's just 24/7 trying to manage all the kids and manage everything that's going on and manage the homework. And folks are sometimes losing out on that time of taking care of themselves. And I'm just going to encourage you all to do that. And just a reminder too, schools and districts are struggling with this for all kids. I think especially for kids with special education needs, but it's a struggle for all teachers and all kids all across the country, and honestly all around the world. And so, you know, while we want to have a little bit of empathy for that, your child also has the right to the educational services and supports that are in the IEP and that they deserve to have. So it's kind of a balancing act, I think, between, you know, we want to have empathy and we want to have understanding for the challenges of trying to do this all virtually. But then, you know, we still have to say, well, I understand this is really hard, and let's work together so my child can get what he or she needs. As you know, as you, I'm sure, have already determined, or maybe determining right now, your child may not be able to access what the district is offering. And for kids with less significant disabilities, your child may be expected to be able to access the general education distance learning that's being offered to everybody. And not all kids can do that. I think it's a little bit challenging right now too, because I also am fearful that the accommodations that a lot of your children may use frequently to be able to access general education aren't necessarily being delivered in the same way as they would be, or in a way that works over distance learning. So again, we want to have empathy and understanding, and we want to work together collaboratively. But, you know, your child has a right to a free, appropriate public education, even during COVID.
Yeah, and Dr. McDaid, I do want to note that with the poll results of The question is your child able to effectively access and engage with remote instruction and services offered by the school? 78% of participants said no. So
Absolutely. And
significant.
yeah, it's very significant, and I'm sad to say I'm not surprised, because that's what I've been hearing from the families that I've been talking to. Not only can their children not access what's being offered, often the attempts to engage with online instruction that isn't meeting their needs can cause behavioral episodes, is causing a lot of stress for families. So we're going to talk about letting go of some things and taking a couple of steps back and really focusing on attention and engagement in the activities. And I think if we can back off a little bit from having high expectations for academic content, we might be able to get there eventually. I think we have to kind of back up and make sure that we have some basic skills that your child may have certainly had a good grasp on with in-person instruction, but they may not be able to demonstrate those skills over distance instruction. And so that's what we're going to focus on. Oops, my slides are going backwards. So I'm going to talk about access, attention, and engagement. And access, means access to the internet and that kind of stuff, which of course is the key to the whole enterprise, but also some other parts of being able to truly access the instruction. Then we're going to talk about your child's attention to a screen and to instruction that's happening over a screen. And then we're going to talk about engagement in that instruction once the child is attending to it. I think what happened, and what still happens a lot, is that teachers are teaching the same way they would teach if the kids were sitting right in front of them. And for many kids, that's not effective. And one of the things that I'm hoping is that some of these ideas that I'm going to mention to you all, you can talk to your child's special educator about and say, gee, could we try this? Or could we try that? The first step in any success in distance teaching and learning is attention to the learning task, attention to the screen, being able to engage with an individual and have an interaction over a screen. A lot of our kids have a lot of screen time in their lives, and it may be gaming or watching shows or movies, but it's not interactive. And they're not expected to respond back in an interactive way necessarily with the screen. And that's the skill that we really need to focus on as kind of the linchpin to all of our distance teaching and learning. And I think sometimes, a lot of the teachers I know, they're really worried about, about making sure that they're teaching the literacy skills or the math skills because they don't want the students to lose ground. But they're forgetting that if the child's not able to attend, it kind of doesn't matter, right? We got to work on those basic skills first and then bring in the academic content after we have established that the child can attend to and engage with an individual on a screen and engage in some kind of learning activity with an individual on a screen. So here's a couple of access-oriented strategies. So these are things that if these things are going on, you got to let your child's special education teacher know. So if you don't have access to the internet, or if you lose access to the internet, I've worked with some teachers who they were very concerned because all of a sudden their students stopped attending Zoom classes, and they were all getting kind of huffy about it. And when we looked into it, the parents had had some financial struggles, and they had lost their ability to pay for internet. And so it's, if that's your situation, there are ways that you can get help from your school district. But tell somebody if that's your struggle, whether it's financial or technical or whatever. If you lose access to internet, tell someone, call the district and tell them that you need help. If you need a different or an additional device for your child to access, that might be, something to talk to your child's special education teacher about. I know that there are many families that I've talked to fairly recently of children with autism who have been having a really hard time using an iPad for instruction because the child associates the iPad with movies and games. And it's very hard for for kids with autism to kind of switch their thinking and instead of and saying, okay, we're not doing games, we're not doing movies that you always do with your iPad. Now we're going to do school on the iPad. For some kids, that's a little bit of a bridge too far. So it may be worth asking for a Chromebook or some other piece of technology that's not the technology that they use for their games and movies all the time. That is something that, they're entitled to a piece of technology from the school district, and what that technology is, there can be some negotiation around what's the best, what will give your child the best chance to access school on the computer or school on the iPad. If you need to sit with your child 100% of the time for them to participate in any instruction, let your child's teacher know that, because that's a really important thing for teachers to know, because they can't always tell how much support you're giving your child. And they also may not know if you have 2 other children who are also on other distance learning activities. Tell your special education teacher what's going on and make a schedule that works for you around what your other kids are doing, and really let them know that I have to sit with my kid 100% of the time. So it would be really good for me if we could do this, not when I also have to sit with my first grader and my kindergartner or whatever. It's really important that teachers know how much of your time you have to spend sitting with your child to accommodate them and support them, their participation in distance learning. Also, right away, let the teacher know if you think the distance and learning activities are causing an increase in challenging behavior. Some of it the teacher might see, because the child might continually run away from the table, or might be hitting you or trying to throw the iPad or whatever. But you might notice things like they won't get out of bed in the morning and they're really fussy because they don't want to go on the distance learning. So there may be increases in behavior that the teacher's not seeing. It's important that the teacher knows that this is happening, because one of the things I tell teachers and parents all the time is, you can't be upset and learn at the same time. So we have to figure out a way for kids to be calm and engaged in order for them to learn. And that's the same no matter where they are, whether it's online or in the classroom. But these are things that, don't just sort of struggle through it or tough it out. Let the teachers know this is happening so you can get more support, and so your child can get the support that they're entitled to. These are accommodations for distance learning, and nobody's really talking about it necessarily that way yet. But they may be, the accommodations your child needs for distance learning may be different than the accommodations that they need for classroom learning. And that's okay, right? So that's what puts the big I in IEP, right? It's individualized, and it should be. I guess the last thing I want to say in terms of access is let your special education teacher know if you need more materials in your first language. I work in a district in Massachusetts where a large percentage of the families are Spanish speaking and have Spanish as a first language. And most people, have English that's, pretty good. But if the special education teacher is talking about things and maybe using jargon or maybe using some strategies and trying to explain a strategy, ask for a translation. you know, that's your right. And you know, if you need to maybe ask to have a paraprofessional from that may be bilingual, maybe they can sit in and sort of support what's going on. Or if it's kind of true special education business, like making a behavior plan, then you're entitled to have a translator from the district. So don't forget that all of these things you're entitled to as a parent, they all still are in play during this distance learning. And because you as parents are in a position you have never been in terms of the responsibility that you have for getting your kid engaged in this instruction, if you need more support in your first language, please ask for it. Next, we're going to talk about some attention strategies. And if your child is really struggling to be engaged in distance teaching and learning, my guess is that they're kind of struggling at this first important step, which is attention. They aren't attending to what's going on the screen. And if you can't attend to what's going on, you can't engage in the instruction and you can't learn what is being offered through the distance teaching and learning. So if your child really is not attending for, you know, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to the source of instruction, and that means the teacher who's on the other end of the Zoom call, if your child is not doing that, and that's really creating a lot of, you know, challenges because the teacher can't get them to engage because they can't attend long enough. When you're talking to your special education teacher, your child's teacher, tell them or ask them that, you know, tell them you want to make a plan to just focus on attention first, and that you want that to be your first goal. And you know, your child has lots of important goals on the IEP. Some districts have sort of changed and done some distance learning IEPs, and some are using the regular IEPs from pre-COVID. But you know, so there's lots of things that I know that you and your child's teacher want to work on, but you might need to sort of back up, like I was saying before, and just say, you know what, let's just work on attention. Let's just work on building that muscle. It's not really a muscle, but it kind of acts like a muscle of paying attention. We want to increase your child's capacity to pay attention for longer and longer periods of time to instruction on a screen. That in and of itself could be the whole goal for the semester. And if it needs to be the only goal for the semester, that's okay. Because if the child isn't attending, they aren't getting anything out of the instruction. So working with your special educator to find different ways to get your child to attend for longer periods of time on the screen, that's a perfectly reasonable goal to have for your child for this period of time. So I see that there's a poll up, and I'm going to be curious to see the answer to this. And I'm sad to say I'm not surprised.
81%.
Yep.
Are not receiving, parents or caregivers not receiving necessary training and support through their
Absolutely. And it's difficult, I think, and again, this is that balance of empathy and advocacy, right? The teachers don't really always know how to do it either. So I used to live in Alaska, and we had this expression in Alaska, we're building the plane as we fly it. And that's really what's happening, right? Teachers are kind of figuring it out as they go. And I think one of the things that's fallen a little bit by the wayside is they forget that once they figure it out, they have to teach you all what they have figured out, and vice versa, right? When you figure out something that really works, you have to share it with them also, because it's really, this is like taking that IEP team to a whole new level in terms of the amount of collaboration that has to happen and the amount of listening that the special educators need to do to what you're saying, because they aren't there. They have to listen to you and take their lead from you because you're the one with the child right in front of you. If your child has accommodations, I've mentioned this before briefly, make sure those accommodations are being used. So if you have a child who, for example, has a diagnosis of ADHD, and they have particular accommodations in their IEP that support paying attention, whether it's visual supports or verbal reminders or engaging activities or whatever those accommodations are, make sure that the teacher's using those or has come up with some modified version of those that will work on distance ed. And again, you may need to brainstorm. And that's actually, I'm sure you've already figured this out, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's a perfectly good use of a Zoom session with your child's special education teacher for you and the teacher to brainstorm. Right? So your teacher comes on, going to teach a lesson to your kid and, whatever. You can either say to them then, or at the end of the lesson say, next time, could we use this time to brainstorm for 45 minutes so we can figure out how I can help my child pay attention to the lesson. And that's a perfectly valid use of that special education time for them to consult with you about what you're doing. So don't be afraid to do that. I think teachers actually like to do that and want to be able to do that. And if you need a translator to do that, ask for one. Help your child. These are just some other kinds of strategies that can be helpful, right? Help your child know it's time for school on the computer. We want to have structures in place that help the kids know, okay, with summer's over, we're going back to school, school's different, it's time for school on the computer. And I use the phrase on purpose, school on the computer. So, because if we talk to kids about we're doing school or it's time for school, especially our kids on the autism spectrum who are very literal, they know this isn't school. They aren't leaving the house. They aren't getting on a bus. This is not school, but it's school on the computer. And that, even just that can kind of set the stage and help our kids be ready to sort of get their brains ready to learn, to sort of set up the idea that, okay, we're going to engage in a learning task, and getting ready and setting the stage for helping our child know that even though we're home, we're going to be soon attending to a learning task. Any of these kind of cues or warnings that that's about to happen will help the child be able to pay attention. And having a consistent place and a consistent time, those kind of things can be really helpful too. And they also support more positive behavior, right? If your child really is struggling to pay attention, ask your child's teacher to record the session. And if they can't do that, if there are other kids in the session and for confidentiality reasons, they can't record it while they're teaching it, have them just do a recording of them teaching the lesson and send it to you so that your child can watch the lesson multiple times. We know with kids on the spectrum or kids with any kind of cognitive disability, they need repetition and they need to be able to hear and see things multiple times to overcome any language processing or language pacing difficulties that they have. So, and that also will allow you, if you have a video of the lesson, to pick a time when the child is in a very good space. And it may be after dinner, it may be not during the regular school day time, but then you can show them the lesson then, and they may actually access it and attend to it that they can't do when you have to do it at 10 in the morning because that's during the school day hours kind of thing. So that can be a really helpful thing. If you are on a Zoom call with your child, make sure that your Zoom settings are in speaker view, not gallery view. So when you're in gallery view in Zoom, that's when it's like the Brady Bunch. That's when you can see all the faces, right? So if your child is having trouble paying attention, we don't want them to be seeing all the faces. We want them to only see the face that's talking, which would be the teacher, right? So if you're in speaker view, Zoom will only show you the face that's talking. You may need to create a reward program specifically for attention. And it may be that, you may have done this for your child when they were younger and they learned that skill and everything's been great ever since. And now they're back. It seems like they've gone backwards. And it may not be that they've gone backwards. It may be that they just can't generalize that skill from the ability they had in the classroom to the ability to use it on Zoom, right? So we may need to just focus on, okay, every 30 seconds that they're paying attention, they get a sticker or they get a star or they get something, so that we can let them know that's what we want. We want your eyes on the screen. We want you gleaning as much information as you can from that person. We want you interacting with that person over the screen. And that's really the basic skill that we want the kids to have. Until they can do that, they cannot access what's going on. We want to keep the sessions short, right? The teacher may want to book you for 20 or 30 or 45 minutes, which is fine, but you might say, okay, we'll do 10 minutes with my child, and then you and I will meet for the other 30 minutes. Because, if your child is struggling to attend, you want them to be successful, right? In any learning, we want the child to be successful, which means we might do a few 1-minute sessions during a 20-minute block. We're not going to try to have a child on attending for 20 minutes when they can't attend for one. We might do 1 minute, be successful, give stickers, have a party, give them a break while you talk to the teacher. Then in 5 minutes, you bring them back and do another 1 minute. We really want to think about, what are we asking the child to do? And if we're asking them to attend for longer than we know they can't be successful. And again, it's not, it's not the teacher's fault. The teacher's not doing anything wrong. It's just, I think teachers and parents too are really focused on, I want my kid to keep up with their reading instruction, or I don't want them to fall behind in math or social studies. But sometimes we have to be willing to let some of that go until we build up those attention skills for screen interaction. So having that be the goal that you're working towards is really a perfectly viable thing. Your child might need one-to-one Zoom lessons to start with. If the teacher's doing a small group, that just may not be feasible for your child, and it's okay to say, can we try a one-to-one Zoom? Whoops, oh my gosh, my slides are jumping all over creation here. I don't know what's going on. And this is just something to think about too, as you're looking at the Zoom. If your teacher is kind of standing in front of a whiteboard or using manipulatives and is kind of far away from the camera, and your child is having trouble to, attending to that, ask the teacher to fill the frame with her face or his face, to get really close to the camera and talk directly to your child by name. Fill the frame with their face and the materials, and don't teach kind of from in front of the whiteboard. That there's too much visual busyness for your child to figure out, what am I supposed to be focusing on? Oh, that person and the words, okay. All right. Couple of engagement strategies, and then we'll have Q&A. So you guys know what things your child is interested in, right? You know what TV shows and videos are interesting to them. So tell your special ed teacher that, and have the teacher intersperse little blips of their favorite movie or favorite TV show during the lesson, so that they get, it'll draw their attention to the screen. They'll watch 30 seconds of their favorite movie or their, favorite character. And then the teacher will go on from there. And they may stay attending if you can pull their attention in. So I see we have another poll question.
Yep, I'm just waiting for the results. And quite a few people, over 50%.
Yep, my child has lost important skills. That's a hard thing. That's a hard thing to watch, I'm sure. It's very hard because the teachers know that too. And we're going to be playing a lot of catch up when we get back to school, I think.
Yeah, and it's quite significant that almost a quarter are in crisis.
Yep, absolutely. And my guess is a lot of that is around behavior. And again, don't try to tough that out. Talk to your teacher. If you have a child with autism and your district offers behavior support services or BCBA services, ask for that. Ask for a consult from a BCBA. Ask for behavior support for your child, because nobody wants a child to regress, but also we don't want a child to have behavior that's really, hurting you, hurting their siblings, hurting themselves because of all of this stress. So your districts can provide you with some additional support. So please ask for that. In terms of engagement, again, make a plan in advance. What are you going to do if your child gets aggressive during the Zoom? Now, this is tricky because you don't want to accidentally reward the behavior. So, and let me give you an example. So you start the Zoom, your child starts to get upset, and you stop the Zoom and the behavior stops. Well, what you've just taught your child by accident is if you have behavior, you don't have to do the Zoom. That's not what we want, right? Because that's going to make it worse. So what we want to think about is, what are some things that they could do on the Zoom that they might like? And let's just have it be really short so they can be successful. And then we can give them a break before the behavior starts to happen. So we want to make a plan in advance, and focus mostly on how to prevent the behavior from happening in the first place. And so we want to prevent, and then we want to make sure we don't accidentally reward the behavior when it's happening. So having a backup plan is always good. Talk to your special education teacher about that. There are lots of online educational programs that may be a better match for your child, or it might be that you work on attention for a few minutes and then they do Starfall or MobyMax or some kind of educational game or something like that. And that's okay, right? We want your child to be engaged in some learning, and we want everybody to be safe and not stressed out. Using touch screens or switches can be very helpful. If your child did that in school, they should be doing that now to access the computer. And last couple of engagement strategies. If your child has a physical disability, make sure you talk to your physical therapist about the best position for learning and attention for your child. There are some kids, for example, who might have pretty significant CP, cerebral palsy, might have a significant physical disability, and they may be able to pay attention best in a side lying position, right? They're lying on their side. They may have the best access then to use their arm to hit a switch or whatever. So try to figure out, there may be better physical positions for your child to be in, to be able to access the computer. So, if you have a kid with physical challenges, talk to your PT about that specifically in terms of switch access and positioning, to really try to get the most out of the distance teaching and learning. Again, I've talked about educational games, and it may be that the teacher can put an educational game on the Zoom from her end and do the game with your child. So like the teacher could play a game with your child on Zoom. So it would be, your child would be engaged in gameplay, which might be highly motivating, but they're playing it with the teacher so the teacher can embed teaching and learning, right, during the gameplay. That might be a useful strategy. For some kids who really are struggling to attend, ask your special ed teacher to make PowerPoints of people they know. Send the teacher pictures of your family. Send your teacher pictures of the child, him or herself. And the teacher can show those on the Zoom. I worked with a young man fairly recently, and the only thing I could finally, after trying a million things, was I put pictures of him on the PowerPoint and got him to attend to pictures of him self doing things. And then we added friends and family and school and other things. And we built his attention that way. So just another thing you can try. Using music and movement. If you have elementary school age kids, things like Go Noodle. There's like the Wii dance moves. There's all kinds of things like that that you could use just to build the attention and engagement. And then the teacher can figure out, if you have your kid engaged in a music or movement activity, the teacher can figure out how to embed the teaching in that. So, you know, the important part again is that attention and engagement. We also want to remember that the attention and engagement themselves are worthy of being rewarded and reinforced, right? So we want to say, you know, good job, eyes on the Zoom. Good job listening to teacher, or whatever, you know what language you would use, right? But be specific to the fact that your child is attending to the Zoom or looking at the screen, or good job, school on the computer, you know, something really simple like that, that gives them the message, this is what we want, you're doing great. So I hope that some of those strategies, you know, might be helpful. And I'm going to stop talking now. Yep. And it looks like there's some questions in the Q&A, so I am happy to do that now, or if we're going to do a final poll. So
actually, that may stay up. I was just going to say, given that it's now about 8:45 and we're at the end of the formal presentation, just to remind everybody, we are on until 9 o'clock this evening. Dr. McDaid has generously agreed to stay on to answer questions. And so, as she said, we're going to turn it over to Joanne, who will go through and ask her some of those questions. And anybody that has to get off now, just please feel free to answer the final poll question before you sign off this evening. So I'll turn it over to Joanne.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we do have some questions. So the first question I have, I need to sit with my child to have 100% of the time during remote learning. He is agitated, hitting me, hitting the Chromebook, everything you mentioned. The SPED director and teacher are well aware of the struggles. He has remote one-on-one, but that does absolutely no good. They refuse to offer in-home support or support at a community location. We are going micro-hybrid soon, but this doesn't help when he's at home. A problem resolution meeting resulted in no resolution at all. What resources do I have?
Well, that actually sounds more like a Matt question in terms of next steps. That's really unfortunate. Yeah, I shudder when I hear those kind of stories. I'm very sorry that that's your situation. And if one of the folks from MAC wants to step in with some ideas, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think with some of these things, because of the level that this particular parent has really gone through, the fact that they've already gone through it sounds like a mediation with the district. I think it may be important, perhaps just because of the kind of specifics, you know, to know whether or not the district has been, it sounds like they've been asked and they're not providing the in-home services, even though that is something that schools can be providing. I think it's important perhaps, and I know Joanne has put in the chat before the number for our helpline. So we always do encourage people to call in to our helpline. That way we could have a more in-depth discussion to see if we can help to provide more specifics.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so the next question here, DESE has started the students who cannot engage in remote learning due to the disabilities related needs to be priority for in-person learning. But how is this being measured and what does it look like? A child who refuses participation, child who cannot complete the assignments online on technology, or a child who is trying to but failing at all academics?
That's another great question. You know, I've read all of the documents from DESE, and I don't know how much clarity there is on that question from DESE. I don't know if, my guess is that it's going to be kind of left to the school districts to determine based on the kids that they're serving. Other than that, you know, I don't know. I think that would be a question to talk to your special education director about and see what their plan is and how they're going to make those determinations. You know, the way it's working in all states is, you know, the State Department of Special Education and Education, they're coming up with guidance documents, right? And they send the guidance documents to the districts, and the districts figure out how to implement based on their own, you know, policies and their own context, you might say. So you know, I would go to the special education director with those questions. If I don't know if MAC folks probably have much better answers to that question.
Yeah, I was just trying to see the question again up here, but I know when I saw it before, I mean, again, it's individualized, and I think the family also has to be able to provide some specifics in terms of what they're observing and what they have seen over time in terms of either regression or what's happening with their child, so that they could fill in with more specific information to the district as to why it is that, based on the struggles that their child is having with remote learning, they can at least present that to the school for more of, you know, very specific points as to why their child needs to have the in-person instruction.
Well, and,
Yeah,
and
and
one other note, I'm sorry, one other note would be, I mean, your special education teacher should be taking data, right, on your child's participation in the Zoom sessions or in the whatever platform the district is using that you're in. And, you know, you could ask them to share that data with you, or if they're not taking data, you can ask them to take participation data or attentional data, so that you have numbers to say, okay, we had, you know, 5 scheduled sessions this week. My child was able to attend for a total of 25 seconds, you know, or, you know, numbers are useful in these situations, I think. And ask your teacher what data they are taking. And if that's not enough, ask them to take other kinds of data.
Yeah, and I just added into the chat the link for the PL3 form, Janine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the form that Desi is using to determine, in some cases, the high needs of the students.
Mm-hmm.
I had never heard, and I've been doing this for years, of a PL3 form until all this started. So, but the link to that form is there. So if you want to tell a little bit more about the form, Janine, because I know you've dealt with them before.
Yeah, I mean, the form is, I can't seem to pull it up right here exactly, but it does specifically lay out in terms of a grid, in terms of the students' needs and where they fit in terms of, I think it's, I'm not sure if it's high, medium, or low. Again, I'm not seeing the form itself, but that's, again, what the schools are using as at least an initial basis for some of the students. But as we said, I think that by providing some of this other very specific information, that's also helpful. The data is important, data that families may be keeping at home, as well as what the teachers may be gathering. Certainly is crucial for the what the families are keeping at home.
Yeah, and we also have, and I'll find the link to it and put it in the chat as well, is the app that would help you to keep track of whether or not your child is able to access online learning. And the app would then be able to be documentation to show when and when not they were not able to participate. So that you would have to keep track of, but and input. But it's a really good tool to use and have on your phone while your child's doing this. So I'll get the link for that after I ask the next question. How's that? So keeping sessions short, one-to-one Zoom with teachers, not para, and individual attention from the teachers is unrealistic when a teacher needs to work with several students. Has anyone had success actually getting this to happen? So I guess that's more, does anyone know the answer to that?
Well, I mean, I know that there are some kids who are getting that. You know, there are some kids whose teachers are doing that, or, and I don't have, I mean, if the para is very well trained and knows your child and can engage your child in online instruction, granted, they shouldn't be planning the instruction, but they certainly could implement it the same way they might at school. So that could be a compromise, but I know that there are some situations in which kids are getting more individualized Zoom sessions so that they can access. It's an accommodation.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not, but we should think about it that way.
Okay. Janine, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't. I mean, I think that covers it well.
Okay. All right, the next question on here, it says, please address what the school not only should do, but likelihood of the school actually will do, often saying they do not have the capacity to actually address the issue. When a parent is unable to sit with the child 100% of the time due to the fact that the parent works extensive hours, especially for students who have a one-on-one in their IEP, needs that type of support to attend and engage, but cannot do in person due to being immune compromised. Sorry, I stumbled over that one. So, but
have you seen situations like this before for kids whose needs are more fragile and maybe need the one-to-one support, Dr. McDaid?
Yeah, absolutely. And this happens actually regardless of COVID, right? Mm-hmm. There are kids who can't come to school because they're immune compromised or because of they're getting chemo, or, I mean, schools have ways of meeting the needs of kids in this situation. My guess is they've never had as many who are in this situation, but it's certainly not something that schools are not familiar with, because it's always been part of, dealing with kids with medical concerns, right? So, it may be, usually that's through the school nursing or the nursing department of the school district or something like that. So making sure that they're involved, might be a way as well. Or, the times that I've worked with kids who have complex healthcare needs, there's been like a collaboration between, the child's doctor, the school nurse, and the school educational staff in order to figure out a plan. And it might be that you would use the same mechanisms that you would have used pre-COVID, but now it's just, your child wasn't in that group before and now is in that group of kids who can't come into the school building because they're immune compromised.
Yeah. Thank you for answering that. So this parent is having some problems with their middle school engaging in additional screen activity games while listening to the teacher on Zoom. Is there any advice on parental controls that are recommended? If I police him, he gets upset, then he engages even less. If I'm hands off, he will get back to multitasking with games.
So there's a couple of things just off the top of my head. Trying to address this behavior when it's happening is really challenging, right? Because you're trying to get him off the game. You're trying to get him to attend by, policing him or being on top of him. That's not working. So what you might think about is sitting down and talking beforehand, right? And coming up with an agreement that you can both, coming up with a contract you can both agree to, right? So, and it might be, if you can do well on your schoolwork while you're multitasking, okay, you can multitask. If you, if that's not the scenario, if your child really can't do both of those things, then it's about, when they can have the gaming and when they can't. You get them to agree, and it might have to start with, you need to do the first 10 minutes of class with no games, and then you can do whatever. And then you just kind of slowly will increase the time that you ask the child to do that. It's, for something like gaming, you have to have the child on board. And it might be that you can only get him or her to agree to 5 minutes without the game. And that's 5 minutes more than they're doing now, so that's okay. Sometimes you have to start small and take baby steps and just get them to continue to agree to more and more time. Because once they're engaged with the kids in the lesson, they may not be as interested in the game over time. So start small and get buy-in from your child. That's what I would suggest.
And I'm just noting the time. We just have a few more minutes left.
Okay,
so perhaps we can take at least one, if not two more questions.
Sure, okay. So my daughter is repeating kindergarten and was considered high risk in the summer, but not for the fall. She has ADHD and autism and can't sit still at all. I got her a ball, but she just draws during class, doesn't participate. The teachers aren't doing anything to get her to engage. We are waiting on a touch screen device, but have no timeline for when that will be in. I have to sit with her 100% of the time. None of the accommodations on her IEP are being given. So that's really not a question, but you know, I can, Janine, if you want to.
I was just going to say, I mean, that's a, you know,
They're out of compliance.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
And we've unfortunately seen this and heard some of this on our helpline. So we would really highly suggest that this person call in. I don't know if they have attempted to, you know, what they've done in terms of attempting to be in contact with the school about it. It sounds like that the child is obviously getting further and further behind, and whatever devices that were requested at whatever point in time, there seems to be some sort of a lag with it. So again, perhaps if you were to just call directly to our helpline, again, we can talk to you more about it, get specifics, but it certainly sounds like it's, you know, a pretty significant situation if your child's not getting the services right now on their IEP. I don't know if you have more to add, Dr. McDaid, to any strategies or things that this mom might be able to do in the interim.
I mean, I always go to talking, connect with the special education teacher, you know, maybe not during the lesson, not during the Zoom, maybe, you know, via text or in a phone call, and just, you know, let her know how worried you are about your child. And, you know, often when we talk, I usually don't start with the compliance part. I usually start with, we're really worried, how can we work together to fix this? And my guess, maybe you've already done all of that. And if you have, then it comes down to, I'm worried that my child has these accommodations. Can we figure out how to deliver them on Zoom? Because she really needs them. You know, if you put it as a problem to be solved, that's kind of a special ed teacher's bread and butter in some ways. But if you've done all the right things that way, then it may just be, you know, a compliance issue around accommodations. And my guess is it's about modifying the accommodations for distance teaching and learning. And I think all teachers are struggling with how to do that because there's no textbook on that.
Yeah. So if you have a second for one last question, there's actually a good question here that it's top one. Is there a range of how much time my child, Down syndrome, 2nd grade, should be on Zoom? He needs 100% support from me. Last week I clocked 10 hours and 45 minutes on Zoom on top of 4.5 days of in-person school. He has behaviors at home, went on Zoom for a long period of time. Can we ask for hands-on activities in place of long Zooms?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, you can ask for hands-on activities and have the teacher write up some directions, and you can just do those activities with your child, not on Zoom. One of the ways that you know, I've been encouraging teachers to work with families is have the teacher, you know, go on Zoom and have the teacher just watch you do the activity with your child and give you some pointers about how do you, you know, work on this math skill, or how do you work on this sound or this word, you know, or these sight words or whatever. You could ask the teacher to give you some coaching so that then you can do the activities with your child off of Zoom. Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I think you already know the answer to that question, and that you already know it's too much, right? If the Zoom is causing behavior problems, it's too much.
I just want to recognize it's now a little past 9, so I think we're going to be wrapping up here for the evening, but we certainly want to thank Dr. McDaid for her excellent presentation. Thank you all for attending and sharing your questions. Once again, if you weren't able to get your question answered today or answered as fully, please contact our helpline at 617-357-8431. The information is also in our chat. We hope to see you again in 2 weeks for our next chat. Julia will be back. And please keep an eye out in your inboxes for the topic and speaker. And we hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McDaid.
Thanks. Bye, everybody. Good luck. Have a good week. Have a good weekend. Get some rest.
Good night.